Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to talk about The Authority. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent. We're going to be talking about something else I've read recently on my iPad. This is The Authority. This is the first 12 issues of the, original series. Back when it was published under Wildstorm Comics in, I want to say it was like 97, 98, maybe 2000. 99. I want to call it 99. Because there's some stuff in there with Jenny Sparks that is right before the turn of the millennium. This is Warren Ellis and Bryan Hitch. I guess before this is what made them famous, or before they were like really blown up. Bryan Hitch from here went straight and did the Ultimates, and I still think the Ultimates is his masterwork. All 4 volumes, trade paperbacks across Volume 1 and Volume 2. But you can definitely see the seeds here of like why he was picked and why he was the absolute right guy to do that story. So previously to doing The Authority, Hitch was doing some stuff with JLA and I think Mark Waid over there. I have some trades over there. Divided We Fall, Terra Incognita. Did a short run on that. I think then he went and did Authority, and then sometime he did Heaven's Ladder. I don't remember when he did that, but and then he was pretty much a Marvel guy up until more recently when he came back to DC after he did his stint on the Ultimates. This run was like a much lauded comic book run when I was reading Wizard magazine for the first time back in, must have been like 2000, 2001. I remember they were doing like the best storylines from the 90s from the past 10 years or so, and this was one of them, Authority 1 through 12. And they were talking about big blockbuster action and stuff, but reading it all these years later, 20 years later, there's stuff I've read since then that beats this, but you can kind of tell. It's almost like watching a movie that, it's a precursor to everything, and then because maybe you revisit it or watch it for the first time after you've watched all the things that came from it, all the other leaves and stuff that came from this one root, you recognize it for what it is and what it brought to the table, but it doesn't maybe quite as hold up as much, or you can't appreciate it as much because you've read so many imitations to that storyline. I think that's kind of what's happening with me here. But I remember them talking about big blockbuster action and how the big panel spreads and all the detail from Bryan Hitch and Paul Neary in the inks, coming across and just blowing people's minds at the time about how much stuff you could cram onto a comic page. Well, I've been reading Bryan Hitch comics for 20 years now, and this isn't a surprise anymore, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This is now what Bryan Hitch is known for. This is what he does. These big, expansive splash pages and destruction of buildings and lots of detail, lots of rubble. This is what he's famous for. Like, he's specifically picked to do these things in comics now. So reading this, it wasn't like a big shock. It was like, oh, that's early Bryan Hitch. Okay, cool. Next page, next page, next page. Haven't read a lot of Warren Ellis, and he is, I guess, more famous for being a sci-fi writer. And he's kind of doing that here. You're dealing with this team of superheroes, which are sort of analogs for the Justice League, although there are some people that are, themselves their own. You have Jack Hawksmoor, who somehow talks to cities. He wears a suit, walks around barefoot, and can travel and talk to cities telepathically, and then travel through cities from city to city in some weird like network. It's never made clear. You have the engineer, who is this is a person covered in this techno-organic liquid that can, nanites, right? That can shift her hands and make weapons, and she can talk to machines. You have the most famous characters from this team, Apollo and Midnighter, who are basically a riff on Batman and Superman if they were gay. Apollo is the all-powerful one. He's the space god. He flies. He has blonde hair. He's beautiful. He's big and buff. And Midnighter is the Batman riff, who kicks ass and takes no qualms about it, and they're in love basically. Being 99, you do see them kiss. You don't see them do much else, and it feels like that was probably very risque for 99 or whenever this came out. Whereas now this is very, very tame compared to what you would expect to see in a book like this that was like trying to push the edges of society. So revisiting the Authority, I think, the time does not benefit it. Whereas, like, you go back and read Ultimates, and time, there's still some stuff that's very early 2000s in there, but the story is so well crafted and so much fun. And I think the fact of knowing the characters helps a lot as well. Whereas, some of this comes out of Stormwatch is mentioned a lot, which I think was the previous team series that Wildstorm was publishing. And I guess it ended, and then this started. And even in the universe, the team ended, and this started. So I believe this had a lot of new characters when it was introduced. I don't know if they appeared elsewhere, but, over the 12 issues, you grow to know them. They all develop their personalities. I think my favorite actually was Jenny Sparks, and she's, a weird character in that she's like the spirit. You find out towards the end that she's the spirit of the 21st or 20th century. And, there's another one born every century, and they kind of stop aging at age 20. So the 21st spirit of the century is basically stopped aging now, today, because it's 2020, right? Poor girl, poor man, whatever it is. And, the old spirit basically, like, passes away on midnight right at 2000. There's even a joke in there that, 2000 isn't really the end of the century, and she's like, just brushes it off as like, well, everybody knows that, yes, but that's not how it works. Whatever. But she's like basically like an Uncle Sam type person for the world or for the century, but it's not quite clear. There's some stuff with alternate dimensions throughout this book, so it's not quite clear if she's for all the dimensions or just ours or just our Earth. That's made unclear, and that may be something that was explored in other comic books before then. But, what is fun about this collection of 1 through 12 is that there are 3 stories in here, that they're not long arcs. There are 4 issues, 4 issues, and 4 issues. So everything starts up and then ends, starts up and then ends, starts up and then ends. So instead of 2 stories or 1 long 12-issue arc like you may see in comics nowadays, you get 3 stories that definitely have a beginning, middle, and end. And I feel like you get to know more of the characters because they go through more things during these 12 issues than you would reading comic books nowadays. So, The Authority, Volume 1 through 12, should you read it? Maybe. If you want to see early Bryan Hitch, I think it's worthwhile. If you want to see where Apollo and Midnighter started, go read this. The next volume that I have on my iPad, and the next... this team left when this number 12 was published, and then I think you had Mark Miller and Frank Quitely come on after that, so I'm going to go read those, even though I know they didn't do like 12 issues in a row like this team did. So that'll be an interesting read. But anyway, I would rate this like 3 out of 5, I guess. I don't know. It's probably way better back in the day when it first came out, but I don't think it stands up for me. That could just be me having read everything that Hitch did afterwards, or maybe it doesn't stand up. Who's to know? Anyways, thanks you guys for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe down below, all that nonsense, and we will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.